Hello, welcome to episode 32 of Berry Fun Adventures. My name is Tanya and I'm coming to you from southeast Minnesota where my family and I run Firefly Berries. And Firefly Berries is a fruit farm that specializes in Concord grapes, strawberries, and naturally dyed yarn. So hello, welcome back if you are a returning viewer, and welcome if you are new to the channel. Thanks so much for coming to check out the content that I have here to share with you. And if you are returning, thank you for continuing to come back to hang out with me while you're doing whatever it is you're doing. So today I have a bit of a different video for you. It is not my typical showing you my finished objects, my works in progress, what's in the dye pots, that sort of format. Instead, I am going to do a little recap of 2022, and then I'm going to take you into 2023 as far as what I have planned for my makes. Now, I will put out a big disclaimer right here, right now, at the very beginning of this episode, and say that there is no right way or wrong way to plan or to look at your craft, whether it is crochet or knitting or sewing or quilting or whatever it is that you love to do. You do what works for you. That being said, I am typically the type of person who likes to plan out my makes. I like the idea of having a schedule, and I like the idea of kind of picking out which projects to go where. However, what I have learned from myself in the last year, what I'm going to share with you here in a few minutes, has led me to a different method that I'm going to use for 2023. So stick around with me and I will share more about that. All right, so let's get started. Now, I think that the end of a year and the beginning of a new year is a perfect time to take a look at what we've been working on as far as crafting. Now, I know it's an arbitrary date. You could take any day of the year. You could do it on the spring equinox if you wanted. But for me, we tend to have more downtime, and I'm guessing most people do as well, have a little more downtime at the end of the year, maybe some holiday gatherings, maybe some vacation you need to use up, that sort of thing. And it offers us a little bit of time to really think about what we're doing and if we are enjoying what we're doing. And really that is the key, I think, to figuring out how we need to plan and organize our makes for the new year. So the first step I would say that I like to do and I would recommend, regardless of how much planning you like to do, is to simply take a look back at your previous year of your makes. What did you do? What did you make? Maybe how much did you make? You want to look at how much yarn you used up, so it can kind of give you a sort of a forecast or an idea of how much yarn you might need in the new year. So for me, I went into, if you use Ravelry, this is an excellent reason why I love to use Ravelry, because it offers me not only the option of going back to see what I've made, but I can also make notes. I can if I changed a pattern, it's all in one spot. But you can also do that super easily in a notebook, on a computer spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be on Ravelry. I know that some people do have issues with Ravelry accessibility, so if you are one of those, it doesn't mean that you can't still do this. There are other ways of still keeping track of your projects throughout the year. I went through my Ravelry projects, and I made 37 projects. I should say I completed 37 projects. That doesn't mean that I started them all in 2022, but I completed them all in 2022. And of those, I made 5 sweaters, 11 pairs of socks, 3 shawls, 4 cowls, 5 hats, 8 pairs of slippers, and 1 pair of mitts, fingerless mitts, for a total of 14,637 yards. Now that's a good number. I feel good about myself that I did a significant amount of knitting and crochet in the year. But if that number would have been lower, it doesn't mean that I wasn't successful. Your rate of what you make is greatly dependent on how much time you have. Maybe you had something really rough that happened in the year, and that allowed you less time to focus on making, and that's perfect. It makes perfect sense. I was a little my goal for last year, looking back, was that I wanted it to be a year of sweaters and socks, which I think, I think I did it. 5 sweaters and 11 pairs of socks. Now the socks, not all of them were full-length socks. Some of them were shorty socks, but my goal originally was to do a pair a month. So I think that's pretty good. And 5 sweaters, although, well, no, they were all adult-sized sweaters. Some of them may have been at a looser gauge than others, but they were all sweaters. So that's sort of where I was at. Now, what do you do? So what? You've got these numbers, now what? Does it really mean anything in the year ahead? Okay, I made that many things, but did I like them all? Did I wear them all? Did my gift recipients like them? What was my favorite? What was my least favorite? Now, those last 2 questions are the 2 that I clung to most this year, because the more I make, I think I have been knitting now for 12, 13 years, and I have been crocheting since I was 8, so way longer. And I've learned that over the years, sometimes I make things and I really love the finished object, but I really hate making it. So I don't know if you are out there with me and you're thinking of something that you feel the same about, but for me, I learned, and I wrote it down when I went down to look. I really loved my Dreaming of Paris socks, which is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. I liked knitting them initially, but as I got through the first leg, I started to hate the yarn management because it is a 2-color sock, and I don't have to split or cut the yarn as I was going down the leg. You just hold it and it's on the side. But I do not love yarn management projects. I like to do color work, but in the fingering weight, for some reason, it just makes the project go on forever because yarn gets tangled or what have you. Now, it doesn't mean I'm never going to make another Dreaming of Paris pair of socks, but maybe I will have to think about, before I start it, a better way to manage my yarn. The second thing I learned about myself from 2022 is that I really enjoyed the projects that were a little bit larger gauge. Traditionally, I have been a loose knitter, so I always have to go down in my needle size in order to achieve a certain gauge. And I always had this idea that in order for a sweater to be warm, it needed to have a very dense gauge. And I learned this year that that is not the case. When I made the Love Note sweater, which is fingering plus mohair held double, and I knitted on a US size 6, which for me would have been way bigger than I would have thought could have been warm. And I have worn that over, like a t-shirt here in the winter, and because of the mohair and the wool, I am plenty warm. So that tells me that in the future, I shouldn't be afraid of making things at a looser gauge because they will still keep me warm. The other thing I learned, and I think I mentioned this on my previous episode, is that I learned that I really love working with color. I like the smaller scraps of yarn or the mini skeins, working them within projects. However, again, we're coming back to this yarn management thing. I have to be able to use them in a way that doesn't require a ton of yarn management, because that kind of sucks the fun out of it. So those are my 2 things that I learned, things that I will take with me in 2023. So once I finished up all these things that I learned about myself, I sat down and I got my paper and pen, and I was just going to carry on like I always do, where I write my list of projects that I'm going to get done, my 20 for 2020 or my 21 or 23 or whatever it is, my Make 9, right? There's all these lists and grids. If you're on Instagram, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I was going to jump right into that. But I couldn't for the life of me figure out or prioritize what it is I wanted to do. And I thought, I'll just sit on it and it'll get better. And I did it. I tried 3 different days and I couldn't come up with a plan. And I thought, what the heck? I can't come up with the plan. What am I going to tell people on my next video? This was supposed to be my plan for my video. And then it kind of hit me that was okay. We don't need to plan everything. Let me say that again. We do not need to plan everything. Now, if you feel comfort by planning, the more power to you. You do you, right? You make that list, you figure out what you're going to do each week. If you're looking for somebody to inspire you in that method, check out Natalie on the Nitty Natty podcast. She has some excellent videos on how she plans, and I will say that I love them, and I do occasionally find myself really liking that method. But right now, who I am, what day are we? January 11th, 2023, I am not that person. So instead, what I have decided, what my dirty little secret about planning is that I am not really going to plan. At least not in the way that one thinks about planning. Instead, what I did is I made 4 chunks on my paper: quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. Now, I will say I didn't write anything on quarter 3 and quarter 4 because it was way too far away for me to figure out what it was I wanted to do. Instead, I focused on the first 2 quarters. Knowing that I was bringing in 12 projects from the previous year, I thought I'd take a look at what those projects consisted of, and 6 of them were blankets. So I knew without a doubt that I wanted to spend the year focusing on blankets. Hence, the blanket binge week turned into Blanket Bonanza 2023, where we're going to focus on completing, or maybe even just getting farther, progressing on our blankets. So for me, that means every week I'm going to pick one day. For right now, that's going to be Sundays, where I focus on my blankets. I'm going to work on Ian's graduation blanket first, and then I'm going to just pick a blanket that I'm excited about at the moment. I'm not going to plan it. I'm not going to say, oh, you have to do the pixie dust blanket first. You have to do the jelly roll blanket. You can't cast on any more blankets, which is what brought me to this decision in the first place, is that Kay of the Bakery Bears is doing a really cool blanket make-along, a knit-along in 2023. She's calling her series My Favorite Blanket, and it's a pattern. It's free. It's through the through her and Dan's Bakery Bears YouTube channel, where there's a segment where she's going to talk about a blanket, and you're going to do a little different thing. I think there's going to be 10 segments throughout the year, and it will end up where you'll have a big blanket. I am a Bakery Bears patron, and I really wanted to cast on this blanket, and I tried to talk myself out of it multiple times, and then I decided, you know what? That is ridiculous. Nobody is here telling me that I cannot cast on a blanket. I have plenty of yarn in my stash, which, by the way, this blanket takes 12 full skeins, so talk about stash buster. I am currently picking out skeins. You'll see them behind me. They're all lined up, waiting for me to wind up for the project. Now, that's a little tangent, but to say blankets are going to be a focus of mine, whether they are current whips or they are new cast-ons. But other than that, I didn't really have any have-tos on my list. I didn't have anything that I super wanted to focus on. Now, I do have some samples that I want to make that I was going to focus on in quarter 2, so I'd have them for the farmers market season and things ahead. I also have other things that I would like to make, but nothing that I have to. So instead, each week, I'm just going to say to myself, what am I in the mood to make? I'm going to have a list of my projects, and I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick the one that I want to make. Whatever is speaking to me at the moment, I'm going to follow my heart, follow my joy. That's pretty much saying I'm planning to not plan, which seems kind of ridiculous, but sometimes in this busy world where we're so focused on productivity, we need a gentle reminder to say, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to plan everything. You can go with the flow. You'll still get things done. In fact, I am thinking I will probably get more done because I can follow my inspiration. I can go where the wind goes, and that will lead me to things that I'm enjoying a lot, and so I will want to pick them up more. That's it. That's my secret. I don't really have a plan. I'm just going to go with what my heart is excited about. I'm going to give myself grace. I'm going to give myself kindness. I'm going to give myself encouragement to follow my heart and to, if one week I want to work on this project and the next week I don't, to be okay with that. And I think that's an important lesson that we can teach ourselves, that we can feel about life, because we're so used to being in this, you must finish this, you must do that, that it's a challenge to slow down, to take a deep breath, and to just let ourselves do what is bringing us joy. So hopefully you're not disappointed in my unplans here at the end, and that you have gotten a little bit of insight into what you would like your 2023 to look like as far as makes. And if you'd like to join us over on the Discord channel, the link to the Berry Funds channel is below. I'm also contemplating adding a Ravelry group. If you are interested in that, if that is more accessible to you, please leave a note below. I originally decided to use Discord just because I thought it was more accessible, but if more people are wanting to be on Ravelry, I can certainly set both up, a group in Ravelry and a group in Discord. So let me know what you think. Be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't yet. And thanks so much. I will come to you again probably next week with a new regularly programmed episode. Bye, everybody.